It's just different.
Hopeless at one point, and then having the opportunity to make you go harder, make you get in that booth and just really express that hopelessness. Like, man, y'all don't understand. This is like, you know what I mean? You dig from a different place. That bottom of your soul, that pit, homie, where you felt like the shit was, you know what I'm saying? You always wanted, but it looked like it was just not gonna happen.
Shit, in your mind it ain't gonna happen, shit, it probably won't. I took some risks, some people probably won't. That's how we're grateful for the fruits of all my labor. Hard to live and know you sick, I'd rather be with my creator, thinking time's up.
All right, welcome back to another episode of Foreign Sight Podcast. This is your host, Mike Obi.
It's your boy, London Ogletree, back for some more gems. What's up, my guy?
Not much, my brother. Just another day, another busy week. Got a 3-day weekend, so, some good coming out of it. But other than that, just another day to try to get stuff done. What's going on with you?
Dang, I don't got the 3-day weekend, but I work from home Monday, so kind of still get to have to freelance it, but still got to get some stuff done. But pretty good. Kind of liking this fall change drop. I'm waiting for the temperature to drop even lower. This is my favorite time of the year, so it's been a good little week for me.
Yeah, nice and cozy. What they say is cuffing season, cuddling season, all that other shit.
Yeah, it's been cuffing and cuddling season.
Well, before we get into the content, obviously we appreciate all of you guys who continue to rock with us, support us, tune in, and tap in with the content. All we ask is you continue to do so by subscribing to the YouTube and subscribing to us on all your listening platforms, Spotify, Anchor, Apple Podcasts, and giving us a 5-star rating to help boost us in the algorithm. All right, bro. So this week we got another, I would say, society and culture episode, but I think kind of what we've been trying to incorporate with our episodes as of recently is just being able to bring a holistic approach where we don't just talk about it in life, but we also talk about it in dating and kind of being able to mesh the two sides together. Because the fact is that everything in life kind of translates, in my opinion. So right now, what we're talking about is a fundamental skill I feel is important for all people to master, especially as they get into adulthood. So I guess where this all comes from is recent events for both of us have kind of caused a drastic change in our worldview, which we've kind of alluded to and talked about recently. Just from that aspect alone, what are you thinking? Like, I know, do you agree? Do you disagree? What do you think?
Just to kind of what skills did we fundamental skills that we master to overcome those situations, or just what is the skill you think you need for mastering life in adulthood?
I would just say, so me and you both have gotten new jobs, getting a little older, and we've always talked about maturing and, kind of evolving. We talked about how we kind of see the world differently. So I guess what were the events that you had happen to help you change your mindset or the way that you think?
Reality. The first one I could think of was just I had to get out of that kid phase and it all stems from your parents actually being serious about dropping you out the nest. For me, it was once they stopped paying for everything and stopped contributing and saying you're on your own. I mean that it pushed me against the wall and was like, you got to perform, because if not, you're going to be outside, you're going to be homeless. So I guess the act of being homeless and the act of not having anything played a big role of, okay, it's time for you to grow up, but also having that in the back of my mindset of just what my parents did install in me growing up is just always work hard, always have those fundamentals to look at it first before you ask somebody for help, or look at it first before you pay for something. Those skills helped me tremendously. And the second part of it was actually getting my heart broken or going through a breakup to kind of get a little more stronger and kind of learn myself in more ways. So once I learned myself even more, you just put both of those together. And that's kind of how I adapt to adulthood, because everything in adulthood, you can be making so much money and you can get hit with adversity, but as being an adult, you have to still stay strong and kind of figure out the next plans. You can't kind of shut down and stumble, especially as a man. If you have a family and say a hurricane comes and your family's panicking and you're sitting there like looking at your wife and looking at you like, I don't know what to do. That just made them all shake because they look at you as like Superman. So you got to take life as adulthood as a man to kind of just stay strong. And even women has to do that as well, because say the man unfortunately might leave the earth or whatever, and they have to stay on your own, have to take care of your kids. You have to be able to step up for for your husband leaving or whatever something happens. So I think both parties has to adapt to that life. So I know it was a long ended, but it's kind of how I look at it.
No, but I love that. You made a great point right there. Just I think every guy, especially, I think, has to go through. Like you talk about a manhood or becoming a man or maturing, whatever. I think all that comes to is just being able to accept responsibility and take responsibility for your own life, right? Put it in your own hands, right? I know I talked about, like, for me, maybe I have in the past about the moment I remember like transitioning where I knew I was changing was when I switched my major in college. Like it wasn't about, switching my major to something else. It was me taking ownership of my own life and saying, hey, I made this decision, so I have to live with the consequences, right? I think every person has to get to that point where they say, okay, this is my life and I'm going to do with it what I choose to do. And then it came again when I decided, okay, I'm not going to do this grad school stuff. I'm going to try to figure out another way, or I'm going to do things in another way. And so then with that being said, you can't look at your parents and say, oh, well, I wanted to do school, but I chose not to. Or why didn't you guys support me? It's like, I chose to do this, so therefore I have to live with that consequence. From that aspect, and you mentioned heartbreak. I think heartbreak makes you a better person because it makes you have to change. It makes you have to look at the mirror first. Or for people who are able to take accountability, you should look in the mirror and say, okay, this didn't work out. Why did it not work out? And for most guys, it takes them saying, maybe I needed to improve on this, because I feel like people who lack accountability, those are the people where, the world tells them, oh, you're hurt or you're angry. I think there's some truth to that. You're hurt and angry if you allow the heartbreak to keep you from taking accountability. That's where I think people will accuse you of that, because then you're putting the onus on somebody else rather than yourself. It all goes back to, that taking accountability for your part in everything. Now, my question, though, because I was actually thinking about this, you mentioned kind of being able to take on responsibility and things of that nature. It's interesting, me being a teacher now and like having young people who you're kind of responsible for, and you're teaching, you're mentoring them.
Right.
And you can kind of see that childish innocence where they still feel like the world is their oyster, the world is open. Yeah. And then you talked about coming to reality. So in a way, do you think manhood is about losing that childish innocence in order to become a man, do you think?
In a sense, it turns, because the childishness keeps, to me, I think childishness for a man is always wanting to be in the loop of something, always wanting to be seen, always want to be out there. So until you really start valuing the actual things that a man should value, you think, in a life, I think basically you have to get over those. Like for me, like when I moved back to Houston, I was like, I'm still not over my college days. I still want to go out party. So when I first got to Houston, I still did that, and I still wasn't doing the full things that I should do as a man for like to my responsibilities. But like one day something just clicked. I didn't really care about being at the club. I didn't really care about doing that. I didn't really care about doing that, because I cared about having my priorities and having my ducks in a row and having a big enough cushion just in case you got to save for a rain day. You just think for like different things instead of just, oh, let me go pay for these shoes. Like I cut back a lot. I love shoes. I don't really buy shoes anymore. So like you just start realizing a lot of different things when you become an actual man. You will know when you start seeing it transition. You would know slowly, like, okay, some of this stuff like 4 or 5 months ago that mattered doesn't matter. And as a man, you know what can get your attention and whatnot, and you know when you're locked in. So I think that's why I would say to all my men, for like, when it's starting to change. And a woman can't change that. A woman can't make you do anything. You got to want it for yourself. And once it clicks for yourself, that's when you would give your 100% to a woman, I think, and plus 100% to your life.
Yeah. I mean, I think for guys, and most guys acknowledge this and talk about it, I think the right woman can help them unlock that extra level, right, of motivation, where it's like those days where, I'm tired, I don't really feel like doing it. It's like that at the back of your mind, you know that you're responsible for a family. It's like that a little bit, even in terms of like me teaching, where now I have football players and young people who look up to me. Like I have older teachers tell me this, like, Mike, you're a role model to them. Or that you actually have an effect on these kids. I'm just teaching them. I just try to respect them. They're like, nah, it's different because you're young. And so, like, and the way that you talk to them, they like you. I'm like, maybe there is some of that, and like you don't see it when you're in the fold and when you're just talking. But it's that being responsible for others or having others look up to you always
Right.
give you that like perspective of, okay, you can't really mess up because now you have people watching you. Right? Not
Right.
just for yourself, but for, you're talking about your legacy, or if you're a person who tries to teach proper habits, you have to kind of practice what you preach, right? I
Right.
think all of those are qualities, that really are, you have to have things that are translatable to yourself. And then on top of that is just making sure that you're always looking to grow. I think looking to grow is something where you always keep your eyes forward, and you'll never really get too high or too low on things. I know that's one of my biggest things is like, when good things happen, I'm appreciative of it, but then I'm like, okay, now we're on to the next thing, right? And then when bad things happen, I try to always look at the glass half full rather than half empty, where it's like, okay, this happened, but let's try to get past this and move on, because it doesn't make sense to really kind of dwell on things, right? You look at that both in career, where you may not be where you want to be, but it's like at the end of the day, you still have a job, you're not homeless, you still have income coming in. That's more than most people could say. I had to realize that with COVID. Right. Like, yeah, I want to have all this money and I want to be able to be financially stable. But the fact of the matter is, we're at a time in the world where a lot of people are getting laid off and don't have money and don't know where their next meal is coming from. So the fact that I was able to find employment during that time was like, okay, now I got this. Now that I have this, how can I build from it? Right. And, you're still young. I think there's a lot of pressure of having to have all the answers figured out. And I think that's where people put undue pressure on themselves. Now, pressure is good, and pressure keeps you moving forward and progressing forward, but also not getting too overwhelmed or getting too caught up in, the monetary things and keeping up with the Joneses. I think there's a balance that has to be found through all of that.
I like how you said we feel like we have to have it all the day. And we feel like we have to. I think that's something that we struggle with as people a lot, is like, especially us in this generation, you see a lot of people get success at an early age. So I feel like as men, you have to, at the age of 25 or 26, like from the age of 21 to 26, they expect you to have potentially millions, because you got a lot of rappers, you have a lot of, what I told somebody was, this is what social media did. It made it more like you can get more access to celebrities, so it's easier to kind of get a reply from them. But back in the day, we didn't have social media, so it's kind of harder to see these public figures. So now it's a standard of what I should deserve as a woman. So now a lot of women are expecting us men to basically kind of provide for them at 24, 25, but reality, we're still kids. And it's like, it's realistically, not everybody can have it all together at that age. You got to give somebody time. I think that's what a lot of women have to get better at, riding down. But also men gotta get the habit of hustling mentality, and like that mentality to kind of know that they still have to be able to do that, not just rely on social media. If that's not working, have other avenues to go get money elsewhere and still bank on social media, but also get your cash flow keep going from different things. And I think a lot of people just rely on social media, and nothing else is coming in. If nothing else is coming in, you got to go get it somewhere else until that social media platform does pop up. That's kind of, that's why I like how you said that. It was like, the standard is so, we can get so down on yourself because of what you see people on social media do right now.
Yeah, and it's easier said than done, I think, for most people. The way I tell my kids, I'm always going to be able to refer back to teaching, because that helps me stay accountable for all the stuff that I talk about now. Even with the show and the podcast, it's like all the stuff I say here, I tell my actual kid, my youngsters, really in real time, because I'm trying to set a good example for them as best I can. And the main thing I tell them is, look, it's not about like punishment, or it's not about feeling down on yourself. Is just about reprogramming, or retraining, reshaping the way your mind thinks, right? And so I think for us, what we have to look at it, like for me, I had this issue a little bit when we started going to Alphaland, and I saw that all these people had these large social media following, and I'm like, man, I could have done that if I had done this back at 18. Like that did happen, right? Because I was like, I thought about doing the social media stuff, but I was told, and I listened to people tell me, oh, that wasn't going to work. That wasn't going to work. That wasn't going to work. And I believed it. Now you see it in real time. It's like, oh, there's a blueprint that you could have followed. Right. But now what I had to do was, okay, look at yourself in the mirror, Mike. Understand, now that you see this, that means it could work, and it still can work. And you can do it too, if that's what you want. Just like with that, with fragrance, with all this other stuff, it's being able to tell yourself, yo, this can be done. You can make it because you've seen other people make it, right? Not that you're trying to emulate what they've done, but just know that there's a path forward for you if you want to make it that way, right? Now, with that being said, what you brought up is a great point. While you're trying to build that, you still have to take care of yourself. You still have to, get shit done at the end of the day, which means that you have to do things that can pay the bills because you're still an adult and you still have responsibility. See, a lot of people, I think, rely so much on social media, like you said, and going viral on that. And then they don't want to take care of the other stuff that they're responsible for. I think that's where people might get themselves messed up. Like, at the end of the day, you still got bills to pay. And until this other stuff pops off, you got to take care of your first priorities first. And I think when people start understanding that and stop trying to take the shortcuts, then they'll really be able to take responsibility for it. As far as men and, being in a time now where women may expect them to take care of them at an earlier age, or they may have a higher threshold, for being with a man, whatever the case may be. I know a lot of guys get resentful when they hear those type of comments, those type of statements. I look at it and I say, at the end of the day, you got to respect yourself and say, look, if that's what you want, and that's not what I'm inclined to do or inclined to provide, or maybe that's not a woman who has that type of personality, that's not your match, then you have to be firm enough to be able to say, yeah, you look good, but I'm not wired to do that for you right now. So because of that, you're not my type, you're not a match. And because you're not a match, we can't be together. And that's something you have to be okay with. That doesn't make you any less of a person, less of a man. It just means you've been able to assess that situation and realize that that's not going to work for you, in my opinion. That's the way I see it.
Yeah, that's well said.
Right. So kind of talked about most of this first portion as far as, recent events, signs of growth, personality of someone undergoing a lifestyle evolution, right? But is it more important to change your company? So this is the thing in terms of undergoing that change and really doing it the right way. Some people argue that it's more important to change your surroundings, maybe your settings. Like for us, we decided to go to a gym like Alpha Land, where now you're around different types of people, you're around a different crowd. Is it more important to change your settings and your surroundings, or change the company that you keep around you on a regular basis? What do you think?
By you changing your surroundings, you will change your company. It's kind of how I see it. Like for me, I needed to go to Alpha Land because I needed motivation from Lifetime to I was the biggest person maybe at Lifetime. I just wasn't motivated sometimes. And I wanted to go to Alpha Land because it was new. To me, I still think it's the best gym. And then there's other people in there bigger than me. So I had motivation of everybody trying to get one goal. And that's when everything first started opening. Now I'm not the biggest fan of it anymore because I think it's starting to turn more of, I think it's more just image now instead of just working out. When I feel like when we first got there, it wasn't as much like that. So for me, I don't feel like I need it as much anymore, even though I still think it is the best gym. I think so now it's like, do I have that ability now to change my surroundings again, since I have that motivation for lifting again? And can I go to another commercial gym and then change my surroundings? And that would change my peace, my this, and everything else would be like that. So you just got to go with the seasons and what can you take and what can't you take and what you need at that moment, because by you needing something can really help you. So
yeah, that's a great point. That's a great analysis. I mean, I agree with you. Changing your surroundings will also change the company that you keep. Now, I would argue that what you talked about with Alpha Land, that's the good and bad with it, because there's good and bad in everything, right? So I left a gym like Fitness Connection where I was the biggest there, and it was a family feel, and it was a family kind of environment. I knew most of the people there, and I felt like it was important for my development to go to a place that was going to challenge me to be a better person in terms of, taking weightlifting seriously and taking weightlifting seriously, more serious than I already was, but now being able to translate into being able to network, being able to talk to people, interact, approach people, women, whatever the case may be. That made me develop into a more well-rounded individual than I already was at that time. And so there was that aspect. But then you talk about a gym like Alpha Land. Well, the crowd changes because, you know, you look at what the old Alpha Elite was. That was really more of a local kind of warehouse gym where it was a little bit more of that rugged hunger to it. And then now Alpha Land has become a little bit more worldwide, global. So now it's a little bit more higher status, higher class, where people are more concerned with their image from my observation. So the bad part about it is people sometimes will go to a gym like that. You're going to attract people who are only concerned with getting the content, getting the image and the clout. And they're not really so much concerned with getting the work in, you know, as a result. So that's just, you know, I think something that there's a downside to everything. But the fact is we went there for a purpose, and the purpose is fulfilling itself. And I mean, you know, I wouldn't take that experience back from nothing, you know, because it's made me a better person.
Oh, 100%. I think, like I said, that kind of goes back to like, you got to just go with the seasons and just whatever you're feeling at that moment, you got to kind of say, is it time to change your surroundings to get a better company? Or even if you want to stay in the same surroundings, just maybe exclude yourself from that company and then kind of see if you can stay in that surroundings. If not, you got to kind of exclude yourself from it.
That kind of segues perfectly into the next question. Then what if you see yourself growing, but your company doesn't want to, right? So maybe you get to a new setting, you get to a new place, not just a gym, but also maybe new job, whatever the case may be, or you get to a new position, but you notice, or your friends, this usually happens with your friend group, but then the people around you, they don't want to change it. They don't want to evolve with you. What do you do? Or how do you go about navigating that?
For me, I go into every surrounding. If it's a new surrounding, with a grain of salt. I've never been the one to overspeak in my new surroundings. I kind of fill out my surroundings, do me. I'm comfortable enough to be in my surroundings. And like, for example, the gym. Like when I went to Alpha Land, I just knew I liked to lift. So I didn't really care about making friends in there. So it's just another gym for me. So over time, by me being a bigger guy, I just know every gym I've been to that's been new. I've been to several gyms and everybody ends up liking me or messing with me in there. Is because I stay to myself. I stay true to who I am. And then over time, by then I see you always focus. What's your name or what's this? And you kind of make friendships from that. But for me, that's if I do see something I don't like, I just kind of exclude myself from it, honestly. So I just kind of feel people out. So it's not hard for me to kind of get mad if somebody hates me, because I never cared that much for people to like me or seek that approval anyway. So I don't really mind it too much. If people don't really rock with me, I can just do my own thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think it just takes assessing the situation that you find yourself in. You have to realize, okay, what is it why am I here? What am I doing here? And does me being here, does that outweigh some of the downsides, right? For some people, yes. For some people, no. If the answer is no, right? If it's the cons or the downsides, you know, are more than the pros, and you got to remove yourself from that situation, because you're always going to think about it. You're always going to be on edge. So I think that's just the important thing. And then, like, I think one quality that's important to know or have is just like, I always say, give everyone a fair shake and then adapt accordingly based off of their first impression. That's why I say first impressions are everything, right? Because it's very difficult for someone to remove a sour taste or a bad first impression from you or about you, right? Like, you know, for a woman who gives RBF, right, and initially, now people are automatically going to assume she has negative or bad energy. Or for a guy who doesn't smell good or comes off arrogant, and people aren't for arrogant people. People are, it's very hard to remove that negative image and reestablish that. Then if you set a good first impression, and then at least people are going to trust you, right? I'm big on my players, again, telling them, hey, make allies with your teachers, because then you'll get the benefit of the doubt if something happens later on down the line. But if you antagonize them now, and when something comes up, I won't be able to save you, and higher ups won't be able to save you. Now you've painted yourself in that light. So it's the same thing in life. Like, these are all translatable skills, in my opinion.
No, it's true. It's just like, I think the energy, like, I can read energy. So it's like, for me, I give out that good energy. And if I don't see that good energy back, I can just kind of move accordingly. And people can also see that good energy on the opposite side. So like you said, it can all help you in a long run, or it can like hurt you in the end.
Yeah, right. Now let's talk about the importance of not losing sight and appreciation of the journey. We kind of talked about that in the beginning, portion of the episode, but I think it's really important for us to kind of dive deeper into that. I know for me, I would say a big change that I really started to undergo was just appreciating, like even these times where it's humble, I'm still trying to get there and chase the journey, chase the dream, and trying to get to that point of financial. Like to me, I'm kind of learning to appreciate it because these are the times where you'll look back and it's like, man, I remember when I was still thinking about it. I remember when this was all a dream, but then when you make it down the line, it's like, man, shit, I made it now, but it's all because of the work that you're putting in, during these times, during these days where it's tough, where you're tired, you get home after a long day, you coach, and then you're still trying to work on content, trying to work on this, trying to work on that, look up fragrances. It's like all this is fun to me because it's gearing me up for something better. So what do you think, or what do you say about kind of being able to lose and keep perspective while you're building?
Like you said, it's just not for me, it's not looking too far ahead, and it's not being down on myself at the time. Because if you have a vision of where you want to be, and then you have a business or you have something that's been maybe 2 or 3 years or 4 years, say failure, it could be real easy for you can just kind of jump off, but man, this has been 4 years, I can't do it. But the person, it could be that fifth year that you could have went one more year, and that could have been that gold mine for you to take off, and then you could have said, all those 4 years are worth it for that one extra year, or you could take off that fourth year and then just quit. But it's like you just never know, because you just never know what people gravitate to. So you have to do it like Steve Harvey said a quote. He says, God put everybody on this earth to do something good. He was like, I have a barber that makes, I think he said, like, I don't know how much, I think 12 to 15 $15 to $20,000 a month off of just cutting hair. He was like, that's his calling. He was like, but you look at a typical barber, you might say they might not make too much. So you just have to, whatever you love, do it because you love it. And then if that's your passion, that you will make, you just got to go through that process every day. And there's going to be days when it's hard, especially if you're a business owner. You have to work more hours than you do work in corporate America. So it's harder than working a 9 to 5, because it's already, some people are comfortable with working corporate because they know they're getting every 2 weeks. They come home, they know they're getting this. But a business owner can be making $2,000 a month and barely making ends meet. And then he's trying to make something, but then he can flip it in 2 or 3 years, and he could be making the $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 a month. So there's just that process of always talking to yourself and telling yourself you can do it every step of the way.
Yeah, it's that. And I think more importantly is understanding, like, most people, I feel like they have this fear of failure that keeps them from even trying, right? Like for me now, I'm trying a whole lot of different things. The reason being is because I was once a person who let the fear of failure stop me, and I'm like, never again, right? And so because of that, even if I try something and it doesn't work, I can at least live better with myself knowing, hey, I tried and it didn't work. Okay, why didn't it work? Let me try to figure out why it didn't work, and then I can be better for the next thing I embark on, right? You talk about most of the top entrepreneurs, they've tried and failed more times than more people put together combined will. You know what I'm saying? So it's just, I think people are afraid to put their neck out there because they don't want to have to deal with the possible reality of it not working. Me, it's like, at least shoot for the stars. And if you land on the moon, if you shoot for the galaxy and you land on the moon, I mean, hey, that's further than most people will go. Most people won't even take the leap of faith to jump. So that's the way I look at it, or how I've learned to look at things.
Yeah, you can't be afraid. And I tell so many people that, man, you would never know if you just don't jump.
Facts.
And you can't live without not knowing.
Yep, facts. All right, so we've been able to tackle everything. I mean, dang, went pretty quickly. But the point, what's the point of all this, though? I guess that's the last question. What's the point of all this from what we talked?
Evolution. Somebody might need to just hear some growth and evolution talk, and just kind of explaining of they might be at that wall of giving up, and this episode might be an episode that can just tell somebody, you know what, maybe this is time for me to keep going. And for me, I'm always telling people, keep going, never stop until you have no breath in your body again. That's when you stop, and just never ever continue to stop. So for me, I think this was just a motivational conversation to tell people, keep going, don't stop. And even for me, this is therapeutic, even since I've started. So I always look at it like that. And I'm going into my week, and these are good for me to go into the new week, go into the workout week with some good positive motivation. So
Yeah, that's a fact. I mean, for me, I think it's just a matter of keep perspective on the journey, and as long as you're and run your race, as long as you're progressing, as long as you're moving forward, and you're doing what you need to do, you're doing what makes you happy, you're doing what motivates you, then you're doing right. And stop looking at where other people are. The fact is, everybody runs their own race, and it's a marathon, not a sprint. And as long as you finish yours, there's no, I mean, everybody's philosophy is different. I say run your own race and finish. As long as you finish it, as long as you're a better version of yourself than every single day, then you're always going to be making improvements. That's my thing.
Yeah, 100%.
All right. Well, that'll do it for this week's episode, y'all. Again, great conversation. Closing in on 100 episodes. And then from there, I'll put a stop for the season 2, and we'll keep on bringing the content for y'all. But like I said, always be able to tap in with us on social media. You can follow me on Instagram at ob.mike56. Hit me with all your podcast episode suggestions, what you like, what you don't like, what you want to see us talk about, and we'll bring it to y'all. El, what you got for them?
Yeah, just follow me on London_Ogletree. But like Obi said, I appreciate y'all a lot for supporting us, for sure.
Most definitely. You can catch this episode on all your listening platforms as well as Anchor, YouTube, Spotify. And we'll catch y'all next week. Much love. We out.
Feet on the ground with a prove you wrong mindset. I'd rather go out on my sword than have my mind tapped. The ones with eyes can never see, I make the blind clap. I'm bringing back that type of sound that once divine rap, homie.